I hope I explained in the former videos why we don't find evidence of the past of eventual and by us expected advanced civilizations. There's a number of reasons. First of all, that the Amazon Amerinds and several extensions of them across the world practice sustainable practices and cremate their deads and everything they built, so to speak, including their own houses, even on a frequent basis. Then there's also the recycling from all former cultures. And then there's also the wiping out from next cultures and religions. So that's why we don't find evidence at first sight. At some point, we will point out that there is massive evidence, but that's for other videos. There's massive evidence, but we don't look for it. In fact, when we see it, we neglect it. Then I told in the former videos why we crash out of the interglacials, but crashing out of the interglacials only matters for non-tropical and subtropical regions. It doesn't matter for the cultures that are in the tropical and in the intertropics. It is most of all true for all cultures outside tropics and subtropics that depend on agriculture. When they crash out, they will decrease or go extinct, and forests will return, and biotic pump effect will come into full action, and we will crash out of the interglacial. We should not forget diseases because this is 0 degree. It's also very important. This interglacial, the one we are in, the Holocene, Antarctica goes on with ice, and even the Arctic goes on with ice. Maybe reduced ice, but it goes. Both poles go on with ice. That's different in this one. In this one, it's different in all others. So there's another reason they lost control over the temperature more than we are doing until now in this interglacial in the Holocene. So we discussed why we crash out, and now we also discussed, and we'll do it again. This is interglacial. This is glacial. This is glacial. In the glacial, there's a lot of dust concentration, even in Antarctica, because this is Vostok ice cores in Antarctica. So there's something wrong. By the end of each glacial, things start to go wrong, possibly also in the tropics and in the subtropics. So cultures there want to get out of it. When the glacial is short of reaches 100,000 years, and dust concentrations increases, they have reasons to crash out of the glacial. This is crashing in, and this is crashing out. So how how should they be able to crash out? It's not the right word to in a short period of time to get out of a deep glacial. So this is roughly 18,000 years ago. This is roughly 8,000 years ago. This could be 12,900 years ago, or this could be 12,900 years ago. So this is roughly, well, over 12,900 years ago. So the temperature is dropping, possibly prejudicing even tropical and subtropical cultures, which in our opinion is the real Atlantis. That's not this or that island or place. That is all of the tropical and subtropical, and certainly the Amazon forest, and after the Amazon forest, the African tropical forests. Anyhow, tropics and subtropics, but it starts to hinder because it hinders possibly in their region, and it possibly hinders everything that is outside of their region, but that let's call it Atlantis. Sometimes I call it pre-Inca culture. What they depend on, because they have to mine and it's getting colder and ice is advancing and dust is increasing. On a global scale, things certainly are turning worse. So they have to get out of it. How do they get out of it? So how do they crash out of a glacier when it becomes disturbing for them? For let's say the tropical and intertropical Atlantis. It's just to give it a name. It doesn't matter. Well, they crash out by deforestating, before massive deforestation or burning down a forest or axing down a forest. Obviously, in the tropical and subtropical areas, they cut down forests or burn down forests for agriculture or even for metallurgy. In fact, there is evidence that before 5,000 years ago, that both of them happened. It's even in the inscriptions in the megaliths, the axes start to appear. And the axes are to cut down forests and to increase agriculture. So both of them increase the temperature. Let's say cutting forests stops the biotic pump effect, which is cooling, and keeping it under agriculture keeps the forest from coming back and keeps the soils exposed, and that causes warming. So another way to increase the crash out of a glacial is populating all the earth with the same intention for them to cut forests and to practice agriculture. It doesn't matter to them if this is sustainable or not. It doesn't matter for Atlantis culture, and it doesn't matter for the ones that are practicing it, the agriculture. So deforestation, agriculture, populations. So what we claim is that Atlantis and Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador are part of it. Both these three places are connected with the Amazon forest. They use Amazon Amerinds. They capture or convince Amazon Amerinds to be part of their program of hybridization. Once they hybridize, and there's evidence for it, there's ancestral markers for it, amongst many others, PV92 is an ancestral marker that points to Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia, and the Amazon forest. They touch that the Atlantis touches. So, in fact, in the tropics and intertropical regions, you have Atlantis like for instance in the Andes, and you have the Amazon Amerinds in the Amazon forest, of course, but also outside of the Amazon forest. So you have those two groups, and the Amazon Amerinds are the basis for the hybrids that will have their populations grown in the cradles. In the cradles, cradles are the first cradles from Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia. Cultures are in the Amazon forest, in the region where both Andes cultures, Atlantis, touches the Amazon forest. The Surui are very close to the Peru culture, Viracocha, and the Surui have PV92 as a marker that proves what I'm claiming here. And they not only have this marker, that is a marker of hybridization, of duplication and deletions in the genome. They also have signal Y or population Y as a consequence. So together, the Atlantis cultures with the Amazon Amerinds, so to speak, create hybrids, populations that expand to to the regions outside the tropical and the intertropical, but also to the tropical and intertropical. We have a very clear example of what I say roughly 5,000 years ago, where R1, the route, the prehistoric route from the Americas, migrates through the Atlantic currents and gyres to Europe and Western Eurasia, and on boats and fleets, they carry R1A and R1B, and that is all detectable. All what I'm saying here is real and is visible and provable in haplogroups, haplotypes, ancestral markers. In most of my videos, I just do not come up with hypotheses. I come up with ancestral markers, with the haplogroups, and with the haplotypes. There's clear evidence, which in general consensus does not come up with. They come up with a narrative, but they don't use ancestral markers. They turn their back to them. They don't use haplogroups the right way. They turn their backs to the facts, the newest facts, like that come from extensive ancient DNA research. So anyhow, we showed how they crash out of interglacials and why that doesn't matter for Atlantis cultures, but it obviously it matters. It's possibly totally extinct all that is not Atlantis, and when it starts to bother Atlantis, and when they crash out of the glacial that is getting too frustrating for them, and they crash out, and I just told you it's with population, with hybrids, it's with migrations, it's with population turnover events, and it's with agriculture, because these hybrids are made, so to say, made. The hybrid is made to be able to live from carbohydrates, from agriculture. So I think it's complete. Anyhow, it's explained why we don't find evidence, apart from that is wiped out and that we don't want to see the evidence. There's also the recycling that must have been intensive all over this 420,000 years, and how they crash out of a glacial, and how we see that happening for us by means of ancient DNA, because ancient DNA we only can detect for this period, for the last 8,000 years. It's rather difficult for ancient DNA to go further back, but exactly the findings with this ancient DNA in this short period tell exactly with what I tell, how they crash out of glacials. And I also explained how they crash out of the interglacials, which we should fear, of course. Like we also should fear to melt all the ice on the poles. That is another extreme and another serious problem. Okay, thank you.